Well, it's always fun talking to you. When you look back at your journey, how do you sum it up?
I would say just constant obstacles. Constant obstacles, yeah. At first, it would always be like, oh, I'm a female boxer. But then I saw the whole sport in general grow. So now it's like not even weird to be a female boxer. And I guess because of that, it's more of just, I always just think about like all the obstacles and all the hurdles that I felt like I've been constantly jumping through since I was a kid. And if it's not one thing, it's another, but it's always trying, it's always progressing, and it's always moving forward.
So we're gonna get to your current situation in a second, but I want to start all the way at the beginning. We've talked about it before, but where did you fall in love with boxing? Like, well, how did that happen for you?
So I started falling in love with boxing early, like as far as I can remember, like the earliest I can remember. The first like memories when I was a kid was boxing, because my dad was a huge boxing fan, and he's from Sinaloa, which is the same place that Chavez is from, who's like the biggest Mexican fighter at that time. Mm-hmm. And I would just watch it with him all the time, and it's what I like wanted to do, but I didn't realize that it was like only guys on TV. And I had begged my dad to try, like I was like, please let me try, and he would say no, like it's not for you, girls don't do that. And eventually, because I had to babysit my little brother, mm-hmm. he let me in the gym, and it kind of just took off from there. And I had that same coach for like a good, 15 years.
Yeah, no, I remember that. And what was that feeling like when you first put on the gloves, when you were actually getting to do it, instead of watching it, like you were actually getting in there and doing it?
At first I was nervous, and like
I bet, yeah.
I was like, I don't really know what's gonna happen, but I was like excited.
Yeah.
And then I remember the first time I got hit, I was like, oh wait, it's not what it looks like on TV. Because it kind of was like, your natural reaction is
sure.
And then I remember immediately I got angry. So instead of like being afraid, I remember I was so mad, and I obviously didn't know much technique back then.
Yeah.
But that was one of the reasons why I got coach, because it was like, oh, she's not afraid to like get hit, and she's not afraid, she wants to fight. So I think that was kind of the first time that I was like, yeah, I think this is something I really want to do.
Is that the good indication for any boxer? Like if you're starting out, I mean, if you're like, oh my gosh, I got hit, I don't want a part of this, then this is not for you,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
but that reaction that you had, is that kind of what you see in other boxers and the successful ones at least?
I feel like that too. I feel like that, and then I feel like there's some people, special athletes, they're boxers that they don't like have that instinct, mm-hmm. like they are afraid, but they're just so skillful where they don't get put in that position too much.
Yeah.
So it's like you call it getting your heart tested. So it's like your heart gets tested, and sometimes people aren't so good at doing that. It's like you can be a really amazing fighter.
I'd be one of those. Yeah, forget it.
You don't know that though until
I do. I very much know that. Yeah. So how did you progress? Like, when was the point for you when you realized, hey, I'm just not doing this for fun. Like, there's an opportunity for me to continue this and maybe go on to bigger and better things?
Well, see, that was a hard. It was like a few years that it kind of took place like that, or mm-hmm. how it kind of fell into place, was because I was always really good in school. My grades were always really high, and I was on the debate team. Like I was like, giving the announcements in the morning, and I was still thinking, because in my household it was like, you have to go to school, you have to, you need a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or something,
Right.
And everybody knew I was good at sports, and then I was running really well, so everyone was like, I could get running scholarships, right? Mm-hmm. And my running coach was like, okay, you can forget boxing, you need to go get scholarships.
Yeah.
And I got accepted to like, UT, Texas A&M, and I was dealing with Rice, and I ended up choosing to just box and go to school like at a community college.
How tough was that?
It was a hard a hard decision, and the only reason I did it was because the whole time I was thinking I'm gonna box and I'm gonna go to school. But whenever I started, because I got into good schools, I would tell them, well, I gotta go out of town on this day and this day, and they were like, well, boxing isn't part of our school, so
right.
Our curriculum's way too difficult for you to be leaving, mm-hmm. so you have to choose. And then that's when I realized that I had to make a decision to, go to school and have scholarships and, go down that route, or be a boxer, which was at the time crazy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go against my instinct, and I did it. and everybody thought I was crazy. My dad didn't talk to me for like 3 months.
Is that right?
He
Wow.
was so mad at me. And my family was like, what are you doing? And even my coach was like, no, there's no future for females in boxing.
Because what year was this?
2007.
Okay.
2006.
Okay.
2007.
Yep.
And I was like, when I passed up all those scholarships, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna go to school part-time, I'm gonna work, and then I'm gonna box. Because my dad was like, if you don't go to school, do not expect me to like help you at all. So I just did that. And then when I was 19, so about 2 years later, they announced that they were gonna let us in the games. And
that was the turning point, right? And that's my next question. Do you remember that day when they announced it? And what were the emotions for you and I guess for the whole family at that point? Because I think it's kind of realization for them. Oh, hey, she's good at this. Now she can take that next step. Or no, am I totally misreading that?
No,
situation?
It was more of like everybody didn't think that my goals were realistic. So when I was doing all that and still working, going to school part-time and boxing full-time, I knew everybody knows that it was going to be a decision was going to be made. And I knew it was going to happen through the grapevines and stuff, but I just didn't know the weight classes because only 3 weight classes were allowed.
Gotcha,
So that's when it got sticky. And when I found out, I remember my sister called me, and it was really early in the morning, and she's like, did you see it? And I was like, and I already knew that was good. And I was like, oh my God. And so I like ran to the computer, looked it up, and then it didn't have the weight class I wanted. So I had to go up.
Oh, okay.
And, it was a 112, 132, 165, but I was a 106 pounder.
Okay.
So I was super excited, but then I was like, oh, great.
But at least now you have like a goal. Like now it's there's something tangible, right?
Yeah, except everybody wanted to go to the Olympics then. So then you had national champions, world champions, like girls from 132 to 125, all merging into one weight class. And then it was like, oh, she's good, Marlen, she's a good fighter, but there's no way she's gonna win because she's too small. The other girls are better. Like there's a lot of gifted people now, and it was like a swarm of like tons of emotions. And then we just ended up like beating everybody by like.
Oh yeah, you were the first one to qualify, right?
Yeah, I was just beating everybody, everybody. So and easy too. So. Everybody kind of just quieted down, and then it went from there.
Just easy, just next.
Yeah,
next.
I think I was beating everybody by like 20 points.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was and no one expected it from me at all.
I remember when you were training over there off I-10 near the Beltway.
Right.
That was your one of your first gyms, right? Or was it?
It was one of the first gyms that my old trainer owned.
Okay. Yeah. I gotcha. So when you're getting ready for the Olympics, is that like a new drive? Like when you qualify, and that's next level. At this point, it's next level.
Yeah. Well, so and then the funny thing about boxing, or the most difficult thing, is that it's not like other Olympic sports. So just because you win the Olympic trials here doesn't mean you go to the Olympics. You still have to qualify internationally, and you have to qualify by name. So other countries or other sports do it by you qualify by country. Yeah. So you can send someone out and they get your slot for your country, and anybody can go in that spot. So they do it in reverse. So after I won Olympic trials, they were still like, okay, she's not going to win internationally.
Oh, jeez. Why can't it just be simple? Why can't it just be easy?
Yeah,
right?
so then it was, right? I mean, then, I don't know. It's
well,
boxing.
I test you differently,
That's
I guess.
why it's boxing.
That's right, yeah.
So I went, and when I qualified, so I was still, even though everyone thought I was good to go, I was still extremely stressed out about the international. Yeah. So I had to place top 8 in the world, and then number 1 in the Americas. So when I did that, and that was the moment where I was like, it's done,
yeah, right.
I can rest for a little while.
Sure.
And then I had to get ready for the games.
Then everybody starts knowing who you are at that point. You got a lot of attention flowing your way. I mean, Coca-Cola, I mean, everything was kind of coming your way. What was it like dealing with all that extra attention? It's fun in a way, but it's stressful as all get out.
To be honest with you, it didn't stress me out at all.
No?
It was probably the least thing that bothered me, because I was just so focused on winning. Like, all I wanted to do was win. So when all that stuff was coming at me, it was like, oh, that's cool. But, and everyone was like more, like really excited, and I didn't get it. it didn't register like that to me because I was like, regardless if I have these sponsors and Nike or CoverGirl and all that, regardless if I have it, my goal still is the same.
Yeah.
So it didn't really hit me until I came back from the Olympics. And then it was like, oh wait, like I can't, like everybody like knows me.
That's right.
And then that's when it was like, oh, it's because I did all that stuff, and that's pretty cool. So now I'm glad that I did it because I see like photos and whatever.
I was going to ask you, do you ever go back and watch those old ads? How are your acting skills when you go back and look at it?
I hate looking at myself. I hate it. I cannot watch myself. I do not watch myself. Only like if it's like sparring because I need to learn. But like interviews, like documentaries, like I do not watch myself.
This is going to be great, by the way. This is
yeah.
It's not a good tease for this whole thing. No, I'm just kidding. No, you do great. I mean, but it's got to be kind of cool, though, no, in a way, to kind of look back and.
No, it's cool. It's more of like, I want to like be able to show my son.
Sure.
That like, hey.
What's he going to think, by the way? Oh, hey, look, Mom's on TV. I'm sure he's not going to think that what you think. I'm sure he's going to be pretty proud.
No, I'm pretty sure he'll be proud. But I think that's more of the thing. And then, since I grew up in a world or having to like try to prove a point that women can do what men can do, and really trying to like explain to people that it doesn't really matter, about being a girl and like, rights and everything else. I feel like if my son sees me in that light, then it'll also like help him be a better man in society about like respecting women and understanding that they can do what men can do too. So I think that's more of the direction that I feel like I want him to see.
How can you sum up your Olympic experience? Bronze medal, obviously not what the goal was, not what you wanted. I know disappointed at the time, but how do you, when you look back on that time, you got to compete on that stage and you took home a medal. I mean, is it still kind of sting a little bit, or did you just kind of look back on it with fond memories? I
mean, it always stings. It's always, when I don't win, it's always it's always gonna sting. But for the most part, I just feel like I'm extremely happy that I got to experience all that because it was a lot. And I, not to sound conceited or anything, but I also got to be the first female ever to qualify, the first female to medal. I was the only one on the team for a long time because Clarissa and Queen got wild cards. Okay. So I, and then I had a lot of sponsors, and it was like, so I had an Olympic experience that was also, I would say, a little bit more blessed than a lot of the other athletes. Yeah. Not all of them, but some of them.
Because part of your Olympic experience is the fact that you paved the way.
Yeah.
Right? Is that, I mean, can you think about it that way a little bit?
Yeah, that's the way I think about it. And I feel that regardless of anything that happens to me, moving forward, I can always have that, and I can always say that. And I feel that when I see, little girls boxing now, it's like, I feel like I contributed to that so much, and it just makes me, feel like I did this for a reason that wasn't just for myself, and it does help me a lot.
What did you learn about yourself from the time the Olympics ended to the time you signed with Golden Boy?
Man, I learned a lot. I grew up a lot.
Challenges for sure during that whole time. But yeah, I'm sure you learned a lot to kind of prepare you for what you were facing later on in the future.
100%, yeah, because I was always, I'm a winner, I win, that's what I do. Yep. And I had never mentally prepared myself for even the option of losing, or like, it never even crossed my mind.
But you can't, right? I mean, you can't. As a fighder, you can't do that. I mean,
some people still try to prepare themselves for the what ifs, and I never worked like that. Right. So my brain never registered, what happens if you lose? So when I did lose going into the 2016 at trials, it was really like the biggest shock ever because it never crossed my mind that it was possible. Yeah. Because I was ranked #1 in the world going in at the time. So it was just like really such a big shock. And because of that, I really had to grow, and I had to grow fast because it's like the world keeps moving, and
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can't
because you had been planning, obviously, you're a #1 ranked fighter going to the Olympics again, right?
Yeah, and I'm already #1 in the world. I was, I was getting better, even better than the last games. I was a favorite for a gold medal. And I was like, so after taking that loss and having to process it so quickly, because like I said, the world keeps moving, the boxing keeps moving. So if I don't keep accelerating regardless of the loss, then I'm gonna potentially throw away everything I worked for anyway. So I had to, really like learn that failures happen, right?
Yeah.
Big ones, devastating ones, and that it's like, well, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna hit a wall and stop, or am I gonna get through the wall and keep going?
Because it was devastating.
Oh,
it was devastating
extreme.
for you.
Yeah. It was the one of the biggest life lessons that I've like ever had, and it made me a lot stronger though, like mentally. I would say that for a little while I thought, man, I'm never gonna be the same mentally. I'm never gonna be as strong mentally. But once I got through it and I understood what happened and why it happened and what I took from it, and that now I can handle so much more.
Right.
It helps me a lot in the ring because there's not a lot of situations that I feel like that I can be put in that scare me, because I'm like, everything literally has already happened to me.
Yeah, was there something that somebody said during that time that maybe just a message that you can even share with other fighters that maybe come to you and ask you to say, hey, look, I'm going through some tough times? And was there something that was said to you during that time that kind of made you realize, or did you just kind of come to that on your own?
No, I would say that it really came to me on my own.
Right?
It was more of just a lot of, processing and replaying, and I went through the whole stages of grief. I felt like someone had passed away, so it was a huge transition, and it was a lot of self-talk and trying to like get myself back to where I was. And then one day I realized that I have two choices. Am I going to sit here and I'm going to feel sorry for myself forever and then throw away all the gifts that I have? I feel like for a little while I was thinking, oh, well, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, like disregarding everything I've ever done. And when I realized that I was doing that, I was like, but you're still good. Like, you still like literally beat everybody all the time.
But you have to come to that yourself.
Yeah, it was definitely like a grieving process.
So when you signed with Golden Boy, that was a huge day. Again, I remember talking to you at that point. I mean, you were so happy to get this opportunity. I was happy for you, right? Because I knew you could perform at that level. To get that kind of chance, it's got to be so cool.
Yeah, no, that was the whenever I had said like, okay, am I gonna sit here and feel sorry for myself, or am I just gonna keep going? But I was like, well, what do I really want to do? And I was like, do I want to stay around and try again for 2020, or what? Do I even want to box? Like, am I gonna, there was so many things going through my head.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I want to sign with Golden Boy. And that's when I was like, that's what I want to do. Like, that's what's going to happen. And, sure enough, people were like, no, it's probably not going to happen because you didn't make it, you didn't qualify, and then you have a good name, but, you don't know how you're going to transition into the pros, and they don't sign girls, so,
Again, the whole thing that you experienced a long time ago, right?
So I got the contact, and Oscar was friends with me through Twitter, and I was like, hey, I think I want to turn pro, like, can we speak? And then sure enough.
Did you just shoot him a message? That's how it worked? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I got a call from his CEO, and then they flew me down and talked to me, and they were like, okay, well then we're gonna do this, and it's gonna be a while because we had to go through the contracts and all that. And then we set it up to where we announced it, and and I was extremely excited about it because it was like I had decided myself to get over what had happened and see what's next. And then I was like, okay, this is what I want, and I got it. So it was like, okay, yeah, here we go once again, and it was like a lot of it was really motivating.
Walk me through your first professional fight.
I think my first professional fight was probably my worst performance ever.
You start there and then you go up, right?
It was like legit. I think it was the worst performance ever because I wasn't also, even though I've had so much attention on me before, I wasn't as prepared for the fact that like it was going to be such a big deal. Because everyone was like, oh, Marlen's turning pro, her pro debut. So it was like ESPN was constantly like in my workouts. Like I had interviews, and I was like, it was like a bit of a shock.
It's a new world.
Yeah, because I went from being apparently not important anymore because I didn't get trials, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then I signed, and then I'm like, oh wait, now everybody's like all over me again, and then I was like a little bit like thrown off during camp,
Right.
and I didn't really separate it, and I think that because of that, I didn't do as well as I should have. But I mean, I still did really good because I can fight. So it was more of like, it was different.
Like navigating the storm to get through the. So I guess once you have that first fight, then you're good.
Oh yeah, and then
you
after that, everyone was like, "Oh, okay." Like, it was a good transition. I feel like, but it was more than a lot of boxers have to deal with going pro. You know, a lot of people when they go pro, they don't really have that much attention, and I wasn't prepared for it. I just thought like it was gonna be a normal camp, and then I go and I fight. And I was naive, but it was the best decision that I think I could have ever made, for sure.
So, building up, how have you become a better boxer through all these fights that you've had now, professionally?
I mean, I've had a lot of different situations. I would say that I learned a lot more in my last fight than anything.
Right.
Obviously.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Well, no, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
We'll get to that fight in a second. But I mean, just kind of leading up to it, did you just feel like, as compared to back in the day when you're training for the Olympics, is this like a different level of confidence that you're feeling right now?
Yeah, definitely. Like the goals are different. Like the boxing, it's a whole different world. It's a whole different boxing world, and different people, different rules, different everything.
Easier, harder?
I would say it's more difficult. Yeah, I would say it's more difficult. I mean, it's a.
And by that I mean like everything else around. Obviously, the skill fighters that you're gonna face are challenging. But I'm talking about like dealing with everything else, with the structures
I
of all that.
was seeing the opposite.
Oh,
way.
okay. Okay, well let's come back right on the same page here.
So like the girls, I feel like aren't as difficult as the ones that I used to fight.
Okay.
Because everybody was extremely skilled. I was on a level where it was all overseas, and I was only fighting the best people in every country. Well, now in the pros, you kind of move your way up.
Okay.
So there's girls that don't have the pedigree that I have, so it's a little bit easier.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, it's a whole different way of fighting. So I'm used to, being fast, being quicker, kind of impulsive at times. But in the pros, you can't really do that. You need to slow your mind down and kind of
be a little bit more measured.
Yeah. Pick more what you're doing, like a Rubik's cube that doesn't stop.
Okay.
And I feel like that is the most difficult thing about it.
That's an interesting analogy. Rubik's cube that doesn't stop. That's good. I like that. So your last fight made big headlines. We know why it made big headlines,
Right.
but kind of walk me through that day and that fight. And you were telling me about this before we started, but that was a heck of a day for you.
Yeah, that day it was crazy. It was just so many things did not align that day, but it was. So we got extremely ready for this fight, right? I feel like I was in the best shape of my life, and I was hitting all cylinders. And then the day I woke up, that morning I woke up, I usually wake up around 119, 118 pounds, and I woke up at 112. And I was like, wait, I never wake up this light, and I'm fully hydrated, and I've eaten, and I was like, what's going on? But I ignored it. I was like, just, whatever, doesn't matter. Just,
It's what it is.
You've dealt with harder
Yeah.
things, keep going, whatever. Then when I was warming up, all of a sudden, my leg was so tired, my back leg, and it was the weirdest thing. And I was like, I can't get my leg warm.
Again, that never happened.
Never happened to me ever. And then I was like, maybe I'm just nervous. Maybe I'm just maybe it's just nerves. So I was like, whatever. And then when we start the fight, I was like, oh, this is easy. My first, second, third round, I was like, oh, all day, easy. I
Right. You got that feeling like you had before, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is gonna be an easy day for me. And then when I hit the fourth round, all of a sudden, my entire body just went out. I felt like a quicksand, just.
So bizarre.
And it was weird because I'm known for having a motor. That is a thing. I don't get tired.
Right.
Even on days
the motor
I'm
gets
tired.
faster as the fight goes on.
Yeah, I just don't. And I've been like that all my life. I just don't get tired. So my work output is it's extreme. So when that happened, it was like it's never happened to me before. And then I'm on this stage, and then I was just like, what's going on? And then when I realized I was tired, I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna catch a second wind. It'll be fine. So I started to feel better, right? And then I got headbutted. And then I got headbutted again. And then again. And then that's when it got really difficult, because I was like, at first I could see film like from the blood, so it looked like everything was like blurry, like if you're underwater for a long time without goggles.
Wow.
But then it was like, okay, I still can see, I can still figure it out. But after, it was like the fourth headbutt, or
fourth headbutt.
Yeah, I think it was like the third or fourth headbutt. It was one where I looked at the ref and I wouldn't like that. It was after that I started to see double.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, like just you can see what's going on. Like I felt like I was starting to figure her out again. And then I was like, but I'm still winning because I won, the first 4. And then I was like, okay, I lost these 3. And then I was like, okay, I got this again. And then I felt better. And then I felt like I was winning. But then the blurred was what was getting me at the very end.
Yeah.
So when they were like, that's when I was like, I can't see. People were thinking that it was the blood that was making me not see.
Sure.
But it was the headbutts. Like I kept seeing double the whole time, plus the film in the eyes.
Right.
So
I mean, that much trauma, like blunt trauma over and over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah, it was extreme.
What was your reaction immediately afterwards, after the fight? You felt like you had still won, but I mean, it was such a mixed bag, and then everything that goes along with it. The decision doesn't go in your favor. I mean, all of that.
Yeah. Well, when I heard the scorecards, I like laughed because it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like I think they had me winning 1 round, so I was like, yeah. So I like when I heard that, I was like, okay, like it just was like whatever. But in my mind, I didn't feel like I had lost, so I couldn't even be really embarrassed or anything. Like I didn't feel any shame or guilt.
Yeah, right.
I was just like, look, this was crazy, and I still don't feel like I lost. So it never really hit me in that way. It was more of just like, I can't stand this girl, so I'm gonna get her again later. It was more of my thing.
There's
like,
that anger again.
Yeah, I was like, I just can't stand like her face. So I was like, yeah, like I'll just fix this again later. I'll get to her later. And that was really more of my thought process. Like as soon as everything happened.
Right.
And then obviously I was like, I hope my face is not messed up.
I was gonna ask you about, like, when did you realize the extent of the headbutts that she had given you, and all obviously you felt the blood, you knew all that, but when did you come to terms like, oh my God?
I realized
wow.
In I think it was like the 8th or 9th round, because everything was throbbing so aggressively, and then I could see, like, obviously on the cameras and stuff, that it was like massive.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like, I hope that match.
Scared us all at home, by the way. Scared everybody who was watching that fight. We were all scared.
Yeah,
at that
I looked
moment.
up once, and they were showing me, and it was like, you could see my skull. And I was like, okay, yes, it's pretty bad. And then I was just like, oh well, like, it is what it is. But after, when I had to go get the stitches, I was like, please, though, like, please, my face. Like, I thought it was gonna be lower.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
Because when you could see my skull, I thought the cut was lower.
Yeah.
But it's high up.
At the hairline, yeah.
Yeah. So, and so thank God
right.
that I can get away with it.
So how do you process a match like that? You've never gone through something like that before. How have you processed that?
I just taking it a lot as a learning lesson about, certain things I do, or camps. Like I did transition coaches. I'm still really good friends with Rudy. He trained me most of my life.
Yep.
But I just feel that I needed to go in a more pro direction.
Sure.
I feel like I still had a lot to learn. There was things that I feel like I could have gotten out of certain situations, even though I was cut, that I didn't know about.
Gotcha.
And
but those are those little things, right?
Yeah, the little
you
details.
pick up as you go along, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel that I just needed someone with a more of a pro style.
Gotcha.
And kind of that can communicate, like that I click with,
Yep.
And luckily I found a coach that works really well in the pros, knows a lot about the pro world, knows the pro style really well, and is kind of getting me to, like, get my wheels turning again. and it's actually like helped me a lot as far as enthusiasm goes, because I don't feel like I'm coming in and doing the same thing every day.
Oh, good.
You know, like I feel like I don't know what's gonna happen today because I'm like really
You're gonna learn
learning.
something new. Yeah, right.
And it's like, okay, so it's exciting, and I just think that was more of the lesson that I learned of that. Like, hey, I think what I'm doing right now isn't working as much as I thought as it was, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do something new. And I think that's what I got out of that.
So what's next?
Well, we're hoping to fight in March.
Okay.
Yeah, hoping to fight
Gotcha.
in March. I was trying to get to February, but considering the cut and just trying things out and the transition and then my baby.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Now we'll go. Yeah. You're a heck of a competitor. I'm glad you're going to kind of take it easy on this.
Yeah. Well, too, and then since I boxed right away after having him, because I had 3 fights and he just turned a year old.
Yeah.
So people were like, when I fought, he was like 10 months old when
crazy.
I fought Sinisa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they were like, oh my gosh, this girl. So I was like, I'm just going to slow it down just a little bit, learn, don't rush, be patient. So we're going to fight in March, hopefully. Hopefully in Dallas is what we're going for. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so they're going to introduce me, hopefully, in Texas. But if not,
And that would be the
sure
first time, right? Professionally.
Yeah, so we're hopefully that's the plan, but we're nothing set in stone. And then we're just gonna go from there and see what happens. For sure, try to get another world title, this year, and then try to get my revenge next year.
Okay, yeah, that was my next question. When's the revenge?
Well, I want it now.
I bet you do.
But she's going down to a different weight class.
Yeah.
So she's leaving the belt that she won in that fight. She's vacating it because they want her to rematch me right now, and I don't think she wants to. So.
Oh, she didn't want none of that. No, doesn't
no.
want any of that. I do have to ask you about your little guy at home. How did that change your dynamic? I mean, that just completely. I mean, look, I have a 3-year-old. I know it happened, but for you, an athlete, when you're in professional sports like this, how does that change your dynamic, and how much of a blessing has he been, your little guy?
It's changed me a lot. At first, I was scared because, it was like, can you bounce back from that? Like, I know other athletes have, but boxing it's very different, and it's extremely hard on the body.
Sure.
And, having a full baby and then having to come back, I was like, am I going to be the same, or am I going to be worse? Or, there's people have different opinions, and I didn't know what was going to happen. But when I came back, one, I've started to feel a lot stronger, which is crazy. Like, I've gotten a lot more power, which,
wow.
Yeah, like, I'm a
that?
lot stronger than I was before, which was really surprising. And then on top of it all, it makes me meaner.
Oh, jeez. All right.
So my best friend says, she says, like, you go into mama bear mode.
Oh, that's
like,
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, when I'm in there now, it's like I'm angry, but like more of a smart angry. When before I used to be like a reckless angry.
Okay.
And now I feel like
I bet you that was a surprise to you.
It was a big surprise to me.
Yeah.
And I think about him a lot. So like, if I'm...
His name, by the way, is again... Saint.
Yeah,
okay,
Saint Diego, after my brother who passed away.
Okay.
So when I'm in there and let's just say I'm having a bad day, right? Like training or whatever. I'm always like, okay, if you don't do this right now, it's like you got to do it for Saint.
Yeah.
Right? So because I'm not
totally different motivation factor.
Yeah. And it's like so much easier to fight for him than it is to fight for myself. Like it's like it's not about me anymore. It's like, it's not like the Marlen party. Like Marlen, what is Marlen? It's like, in my head, it's like I'm fighting for my son. And it's so much like more motivation behind that. Because if I don't want to do something today, it's like, well, it's only hurting me,
Yeah.
But now it's like, well, if I'm not doing this, then it's also hurting him. So it's been actually the best thing that's like ever happened to me, like, period. And then he's amazing. Like, he is like amazing. He's adorable, and he's just like,
I see the pictures online and his laugh and all that.
Yeah.
So, do you want him to be a boxer?
Never, ever,
Okay.
ever. No.
That's the question I always ask athletes with kids. Do you want them to play football? Do you want them to be a boxer? So, boxing, no.
No. I hope that he can find. I'm gonna get him into like a lot of sports and music, and hopefully he'll find something early that he likes to do.
Yep.
I'm gonna definitely let him choose.
Sure.
But I'm not gonna like give him a pair of gloves and be like, come to the gym, you know?
Yeah, sure.
What I will do is like, if for some reason he comes to me and he's like, I want to do it.
That's right.
Then I'm not gonna deny him.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna throw it on him at all. I might throw in like, force him to golf or something.
Yes, I'm totally different. Well, it's always a pleasure talking to you.